Hello, everyone, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, Senior Minister here, and it is my honor to welcome each of you. I'm so grateful that you decided to join in with us for this celebration. We are an open and affirming spiritual community, and our mission is to teach spiritual tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everyone. If you happen to be tuning in for the very first time, a special welcome. I want you to know that we honor you no matter where you happen to be on your personal spiritual journey. I also want to recognize the dedicated crew in the room with me this morning that is making these live broadcasts and broadcasts possible through the pandemic when we're socially isolated. Our technical director is Bill Miner. His wife Connie is one of our videographers, as well as Randy Clark and Jason Rummel and Shannon Schnibbe. We also have our sound director, Tom Frederick. And we are so grateful to each of them. So let's get started this morning. Our vocalist is Alexa Ehrlich, and she has our opening song for us now. Alexa. Pour yourself in me. Wow. We're going to take a collective deep breath. I invite you to do that with me right now as we just go within for our opening prayer this morning. Pour yourself into my heart, wonderful Spirit, recognizing that one power and presence that created this manifest universe, the source of all of life. That mysterious one that we can't really circumscribe. It has no boundaries. Its circumference everywhere. But I do know it first and foremost as unconditional love, as infinite intelligence, exquisite order, harmony, beauty, freedom, and so much more. I know that it is everywhere present, all-powerful, all-knowing. And I know that each one of us is an individual incarnation of that one spirit, that one life, no matter what we call it, God, Spirit, Source, so many names for that one presence, that source of all that is. And so I speak my word this morning knowing that this celebration is guided by that infinite intelligence, and that each one listening, whether it be live or to our recording, gleans something that is uplifting, that brings each of us closer to the truth that we are one. We are all one in God. And so I bless this time together. I give thanks for this time together, giving thanks for our beautiful vocalist, Alexa, and all those in the room helping to make this possible. And I bless each one listening, whether it's this morning or any time, Blessings, blessings, blessings. In gratitude for the opportunity to speak words of truth and to come together in community, even though it's virtually right now, I release this word, knowing as all prayers, it is heard and it is answered. And we say together, and so it is. Amen. For our reading this morning, I've chosen to read excerpts from the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. This is the Book of the Way, is one translation for the Tao Te Ching, and it was written 2,500 years ago, in about 500 BC. In our teaching, Science of Mind, we teach that there are golden threads of wisdom that run through all the major faith traditions. And so truths that were known 2,500 years ago, true spiritual truths, are true always and forever. So I invite you to take in these words from Lao Tzu. Simplicity, patience, compassion. Simplicity, patience, compassion. These three are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and thoughts, you return to the source of your being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. The wise man is one who knows what he does not know. And finally, when you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. Words of wisdom from Lao Tzu. And now another song from our beautiful Alexa Ehrlich.
Down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind.
Wow, thank you, Alexa. Just beautiful. Let's give her a round of applause. Ah, wow. I thought I would start this morning with one of my favorite stories. It comes from the Taoist tradition, and it involves an elderly Chinese farmer who lived alone on a small farm with his son. They had one horse. They were fairly poor, but they made a living. The horse was so important because it helped sow the crops, harvest the crops, take them to the market to sell them. Well, one morning when they awoke, they discovered that the horse had escaped its corral and took off. They did not know where it was. Now, the neighbors came over to commiserate. "Oh, my goodness," they said. "We're so sorry. This is so terrible. What an awful thing to have happened." And the farmer said to them, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Well, a couple days later, the horse found its way back home, but it wasn't alone. It brought with it 2 wild horses that it had met up with in the woods. And they were able to capture the wild horses with the intention of training them to help out on the farm. So the neighbors again came over to celebrate. "Oh, isn't this the most perfect thing that could have happened? What great luck." And again, the farmer just said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." The next day, the son, in an attempt to break and tame one of the wild horses, was trying to get on it when he was thrown and broke his leg in many places. It was a really bad break. And of course, the neighbors this time, "Oh, how awful, what bad luck, we're so sorry, isn't this awful?" And the farmer once again, as you may have guessed, said, "Maybe yes, maybe not." Shortly thereafter, the king's men came to each village in the area. A war had broken out with a neighboring kingdom, and the representatives of the king were enlisting the eldest son of each family to go off to a bloody war from which many, if not most, of these young men would never return. And of course, because the farmer's son was laid up with a badly broken leg, he was passed over. And those neighbors, nosy neighbors maybe, came again to say, oh, with tears in their eyes, some of them, because many young men were shipped off, "Isn't this wonderful, wonderful? You have the best luck." And once again, of course, the farmer said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." I love this lesson because in the Western world, especially these days, we tend to want to label things. This is great, this is terrible. We're in the midst of a pandemic, which in many ways is devastating. It's taking millions of lives worldwide and destroying livelihoods and businesses, and so this is a very difficult time. But unless we take an overview, if we could get the God's eye view of any particular situation, we don't really understand the outcome or what's coming of it in the end. Many of us, I'm sure, many of you have had the experience of having a challenge or a loss, perhaps losing a job or something else terrible happening, turns out to be a blessing in disguise. I know in my own life, I was terribly disappointed when I was candidating for various pulpits to be turned away from a center that I fell in love with and I saw myself at and was sure was mine. And I was pretty upset. And then this opportunity to come to Southern Oregon came up, and I love it here. I feel at home here. I feel like this is the place I was meant to be. So the Buddhists talk about not being attached. You know, they say attachment is one of the causes of suffering, and grasping at something we think we have to have is also a cause of suffering. So my talk message this morning, my message title is Be Like Water, Lessons from the Tao. The Tao meaning the natural way of things, nature, the source of all of life. Be like water. There are many mentions of the element of water in the Tao Te Ching. And there are also many paradoxes. Lao Tzu loved to talk in paradoxes. He said that true words are often paradoxes. For instance, soft is strong. In the case of water, soft is strong. Think about it. Water is a powerful, powerful element, but it flows and it's flexible. It doesn't act with decisive harshness. It's soft. There are many phrases in our language that speak to this idea. Go with the flow, let go, let God. We talk about the art of allowing or surrendering. We talk about being here now, being present no matter what is going on, fully, fully present to the now moment. And of course, I think one of the prayers that most speaks to this idea, anyone in a 12-step program would recognize the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In science of mind, we have focused traditionally very much on our thoughts and words being creative so that we can control circumstances. We can manifest what it is we want in life. And this is very true to a large extent. We know that prayers are heard, that there's a law that always responds to what we're focusing on, and we can create much of what we want to experience in life. But let's face it, we can't control everything. I don't know of anybody that prayed for this pandemic, for instance, but it's here, it's real, it's happening, and we need to adjust and we need to decide how do we respond. What is soft is strong. What is soft is strong. Verse 78 in the Tao Te Ching says this: nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this truth, but few can actually practice it. One of the clearest examples of this idea of water being soft yet strong is the Grand Canyon. I lived for 24 years in Arizona, and if you haven't seen this true wonder of the world, it is worth visiting. What an amazing testament to the power of water. It took about 6 million years, as I understand it, for the Colorado River, what is now called the Colorado River, and its tributaries, to etch this deep canyon through the layers of rocks. The canyon is 277 miles long, 18 miles wide at places, and also more than a mile deep. It is amazing. And I understand that it exposed 2 billion years of the Earth's geology. It took only 6 million to create it. So my message this morning is, let's be like water. Let's learn to be like water, as Lao Tzu encouraged us. Let's be able to go with the flow, to be fully present with what is, to trust divine order. This is one of the tenets we teach in Science of Mind, that there is divine order. If God is all there is, Spirit, God, love, intelligence is present in every single situation there is. It doesn't mean God is trying to punish us by bringing on this pandemic, but there is good, there is God in every aspect of our lives, and everything in the end works out. Life spirals upward, as our founder, Ernest Holmes, has told us. So even in the midst of the pandemic, if we can keep our faith, if we can know that even though we can't control specific things that are going on right now. Trust and know God is right where we are. So for difficult times, there's a beautiful affirmation in the Science of Mind textbook written by our founder, Ernest Holmes, who said this: "The depression, the misunderstanding, the maladjustment, the frustration which may have taken place in my life is now eradicated. God is the one causation back of all manifestation, and there could not be cause for development of any kind contrary or superfluous to the divine order. There could not be cause for a development of any kind contrary or superfluous to the divine order." Divine order is always, always, everywhere present. So this idea that we don't have to struggle, we don't have to fight, we don't have to resist. In fact, there's a little slogan in our teaching: what we resist persists, because we're focusing on it, yes? So we don't fight, we accept, and we become flexible like water. We keep moving. In thinking about this topic this week of not having to muscle through life, not having to clench up and make it through, but to flow more like water, oddly enough, I thought about my experience as a competitive swimmer. Now, in college, this was pre-Title IX. My university, Tufts in Boston, didn't have a women's swim team, so I was a synchronized swimmer. But shortly after I graduated, I joined a master's swimming group and was privy to coaches that were teaching me how to make my stroke in the water more efficient. So any of you who know how to swim the crawl or the freestyle know that it can feel difficult if we feel like we have to muscle, pick our arm up and put it forward and bring it through the water. And what I learned by coaches that were trained by an amazing coach named Red Sylvia, who was the head coach at Springfield College for 40 years. He had some 200 All-American swimmers under his tutelage and one gold medal Olympian as well. And what Sylvia taught was to be in sync with the natural laws of the universe. Isaac Newton talked about inertia. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. And he talked about every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So Sylvia and my coach taught me not to muscle, to use as little muscle force as possible. When you swing your arm out of the water, you allow inertia to carry it forward. And you use just as much muscle as you need to do to draw your hand back, which propels you forward. So the idea is inertia is everything. And I think that's a beautiful way to think about living in life. Not to muscle our way, but to depend on that flow of good in our lives and to go with the flow. Another expression we hear sometimes is, don't push the river, go with the flow. Now, Lao Tzu wrote about 7 virtues of water. The Taoists are big on what we can learn from the natural world, from nature. So here are the 7 different virtues he says water can teach us. One is how to handle obstacles, like we've talked about. Water doesn't attack its obstacles, it just flows around them and eventually wears away the rock as it did in the Grand Canyon. So we can learn, too, to handle obstacles with ease, with equanimity, with grace, with patience. The second virtue, he says, water can teach us is humility. We all know that water seeks the lowest point in a given vicinity. And Lao Tzu reminds us that a good leader, a good administrator, doesn't lead from up high as if he or she was better than everyone else, but comes down to the level with humility and leads, if you will, from behind. Beautiful lesson. Water in its still form, in a pool, for example, that is still, reflects accurately, like a mirror, the world around it. And Lao Tzu says we too, when we become still, can have integrity and impeccability in our word. We can speak truth. We can reflect truth, just as water does. In deep pools, he says, we can learn from water that we have a depth of emotion, of understanding, a depth of connection with the divine, if you will. That's not a Taoist word, but I'll use it. And we can see that same depth and honor that same depth in all beings. Another thing water does is it nurtures everything, every animal, every plant in its path. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't decide, I like you or you deserve this and you don't. It treats all with equal goodness. It is unconditionally kind and generous, if you will. And finally, water has great timing according to seasons. We don't see winter snow in the summer. We don't see summer rains in the winter. And we too can learn to be mindfully appropriate in life, making decisions based on our guidance. Being still like that pool of water, listening, hearing guidance, and acting on our guidance. Again, Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind magazine says this about guidance. If we have to make a choice and feel we do not know which or what to choose, we must be still in our own consciousness and know that spirit within us knows which of these ways is the right and most constructive way and will guide us. It will guide us. Non-action is another concept in the Tao. Sometimes when we don't know what to do, taking non-action until we're guided is the right thing. Non-action, that's another paradox, if you will. Non-action actually gets things done sometimes better than rashly acting before we are guided. I think what has spoken to me most this week in sitting with this idea of being like water is the importance of trusting divine order, keeping our faith, if you will, in divine order, becoming and remaining flexible and flowing with what is. We do teach in our philosophy that God is infinite abundance, infinite good, and of course, absolute order. And I want to share with you another little story that I shared on our morning spiritual practice call this past Monday. It comes from Mark Nepo's book, The Book of Awakening. And it's a story about people creating a trap for monkeys by hollowing out a coconut and filling it with rice, putting it in the trap. But the trap has a door just big enough for the monkey's hand to fit in. Now, if the monkey reaches in to grab the rice and gets a fistful of rice, the opening is too small for the monkey to take its hand back out. So it is trapped unless it's willing to let go of the rice. Many times the monkey is not, even though there's abundant food in the jungle of all kinds, it gets fixated, it grasps, and it doesn't want to let go. And so what I asked those on our morning call this past Monday was, what is your rice? What is the rice in your life that you're grasping and it's keeping you a prisoner in some way? It's not allowing you the freedom to see other options, but you don't want to let go of it. What is your rice? And I realized as I thought about it for me personally, my rice right now is that I want this pandemic to end now. I want it to end now. We're all weary of hearing the news of its spread, knowing about the suffering it's causing, both in families it's devastating, killing people, and also devastating economically. But if I'm grasping onto, I want this to end now, and I'm trying to muscle through, I'm missing this present moment. I'm taking myself out of a place of equanimity, peace, and trust. And I'm creating suffering more so than I would have to if I could let go of that rice and trust divine order, trust divine right action is taking place right now, right here. I hope that makes some sense to you. It does to me. And yet this is not an easy thing to do, is it? That's where our spiritual practices come in, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. There's one last thing I wanted to share with you today, and that's something called polyvagal theory. I had never heard that term before this week, But one night I was unable to sleep. In the middle of the night I woke up and I couldn't get back to sleep. And I do, as sometimes I do, is I put on a podcast. And this particular one was an interview done by Tammy Simon, founder of Sounds True. And she was interviewing a scientist and a therapist named Deb Dana. And Deb has a program that she calls Befriending Your Nervous System. Now, I want to say before I talk to you about polyvagal theory that, when we get upset and stressed, which is easy to do right now in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, our immune system is compromised. So we kind of are experiencing a catch-22. The circumstances create stress. Stress compromises our immune system. Our compromised immune system makes us more susceptible to this COVID-19 virus. So how can we live and maintain equanimity and be as stress-free as possible in the midst of any real challenge? Deb Dana talks about this polyvagal theory has to do with the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in our human bodies. It starts at the base of the skull. And according to this theory, there are two pathways to the vagus nerve. One is the ventral vagal pathway, which leads to our heart, connects us to our heart. The other is called the dorsal vagal pathway, and it leads to our abdomen, to our gut. Now, when that ventral vagal pathway to our heart is activated, we feel connected, we feel connection, we communicate easily, we are feeling a feeling of safety and peace. And we're able to think and be flexible in our responses. Our frontal cortex is fully operative. When our dorsal vagal system pathway is activated, leading to our gut, we are disconnected and we have this overriding feeling of wanting to disappear. Our prefrontal cortex goes offline and we are in that fear, anxious state. It's not fun and it's not productive. Now, our biology protects us. We all know that we have this reptilian brain so that we can go into the fight or flight response, which sometimes can be life-saving. But when it's overactive over a long period of time, it does not serve us. And what happens with this ventral vagal system is we freeze. We want to disappear. Again, this pathway to our heart allows us to feel compassion and connection, and it allows us to experience curiosity, which allows us to explore the best options for how we respond. Now, we have a predisposition in our biology to pay attention to what's wrong, to pay attention to cues of danger, and there are plenty of them right now. But what Deb Dana encourages us to do is to tune in to cues of safety. And how do we do that? For instance, she says we're all wearing masks. Everyone except our musician and I in this room are wearing masks to protect ourselves. That can be a cue of danger, right, when we're out in the world. We could also look at it as a cue of safety, knowing we're protecting each other. But what Deb Dana recommends is that we look at the eyes of people. Have you done that when you're out? Connect to the eyes of people above the mask. And when we do that, it's a cue of safety because it allows us to connect. There are other things, and some of this is individual. We ask ourselves, what would make my nervous system feel nurtured and relaxed right now? Music is one way that is soothing. Nature, either actually being in nature or looking at photographs or scenes of nature, or perhaps a documentary about nature. For some of us, a FaceTime call with family, seeing loved ones, even if we can't physically see them, tends to bring us into connection and relaxation and activates that pathway to our hearts. For some of us, maybe it isn't FaceTime. Maybe that's a little jarring, but maybe it's sending a text message and receiving one back. There are so many ways, and of course, meditation, whether it's being still or perhaps a walking meditation, because sometimes being still is difficult when we're stressed, but walking slowly or doing Tai Chi or yoga can truly relax us. And of course, prayer. Prayer, prayer, prayer. Connects us with our divine source, reminds us we're not alone, reminds us that there's a power for good in the universe, and it never, ever abandons us. So all of these suggestions allow us to take a step back and do what Deb Dana calls going home. Going home so that we're centered in that ventral vagal pathway to our heart where we can be relaxed and connected, compassionate, loving, and where we can think clearly and hear clearly advice from the divine voice within us. So in summary, I want to encourage us this week to consider being like water. After all, our bodies are 75% made of water. Our brains are about 85% made of water. Let's be soft and strong, not muscle through life. Let's be able to know that even when something happens, like that poor farmer when tragedy struck, to know that that's not the end of the story, to not label it and get upset at it, not to be attached or grasping, but to go with the flow and trust divine order. Let's be willing to let go of our rice, whatever it is we're grasping onto that doesn't seem to want to come easily through the doorway to our lives. Let's be willing to let it go and trust that there's other good, that there's other options. The very fact that we're able to meet in community here virtually is an example of how we didn't grasp on the idea that we have to meet in person, but for now, this is the way we can connect virtually. Spiritual teacher Adyashanti said this: true freedom is to be free from the desire to be free from anything. True freedom is to be free from the desire to be free from anything. And the beautiful writer Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, reminded us that when we can't control anything in our lives, one thing we can always do is we always have the freedom to choose how we respond. That is a God-given freedom, my friends. The freedom to choose, the freedom to pray, the freedom to listen to divine guidance. Let's go into prayer. Take in a deep breath again. I give thanks for all the beautiful spiritual teachers going way back 2,500 years ago to Lao Tzu and the beautiful wisdom of the Tao Te Ching. I give thanks for the element of water and the beautiful virtues it teaches us. I give thanks for all of nature in this manifest universe. I give thanks for this power and presence, this creator of all that is, that has given us an abundance of good, that has given us freedom to choose our thoughts, our attitude, what we do, how we respond. I give thanks for the knowing that we are all one. We are all one in God, children each of that Most High, imbued with the qualities of God, like freedom, like love, peace, connection, beauty, harmony. That is our birthright, wholeness. I know that these beautiful human bodies are imbued with divine intelligence, and they know how to heal themselves. I know that we have the tools at hand to stay connected to the heart rather than to the reptilian brain. We have the tools to center ourselves in this beautiful gift that is the present now moment. That when we take time to breathe, perhaps breathing in and extending our exhale, perhaps sighing, be it a sigh of contentment, a sigh of relief, a sigh of frustration, that these are cues that kick us into this ventral vagal system where we are connected to the heart, to the divinity within us, to the divinity within each other, that we can then create responses that are life-serving, life-giving, generous, and compassionate. We are not victims of our circumstances. We are magnificent spiritual beings endowed with freedom and with tools to keep us in tune with nature, with our planet, with each other. And we have the ability to create the perfect response at the perfect time. God, grant me the serenity to recognize those things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I give great thanks for our teachings. I give great thanks for this very now moment in the preciousness of it. I just release this prayer into the responsive hands of God, knowing it is heard, it is answered, and we say together, and so it is. Amen.
What a beautiful prayer and message, my goodness. And this next song I'm going to be singing is called The Light and the Sea, and it reiterates what Reverend Kimberly said, that, go with the flow and always remember that there's the light and the sea. Sitting out upon the waves in darkness and upheaval, I was told that I alone would not know good and evil. Oh, but in time, in time, it came to me as my shepherd fallen rise. I could turn and lift my eyes to the light, that distant light, and there will always be the light and the sea, rolling sea, the light and me. And as the days rolled by, I turned my wheel toward the thunder, taking on a challenge that I knew could take me under. And oh, it took me down. And oh, it took me down. And it came to me as I blessed the stem and sail, because it's fate that I shouldn't fail. There is a light, a distant light, and there will always be the light and the sea, the rolling sea, the light and me. And it all comes down to me, to feel the presence of my soul amid the torrents and the cold of the sea. And there will always be the light and the sea, the rolling sea, the light and me. And there will always be the light and the sea.
Wow. Alexa, I don't know how you manage always to choose the perfect song, but you do. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. There will always be the light and the sea, the light of the divine. Yes, always, even when it's cloudy and maybe we can't quite see it. Now is the time in our service when I direct our attention to another spiritual practice, that of sacred giving. It's a practice that really brings us into the moment, into a state of gratitude, to recognize all the good that we receive, all the good that comes into our lives. And when we give back to the places where we're spiritually fed, we are really feeding the law of circulation. It's a powerful practice. And I want to give thanks to all of you who have continued to support us in this time of social isolation. We are deeply grateful. And I encourage you now to symbolically place your gift in your hands, place it over your heart. And when we meet in person, use this affirmation. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate, as the Bible tells us, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, and so it is. There are several ways to give since we are not meeting in person. You can mail a check to CSL Rogue Valley at our address, P.O. Box 1458, Medford, Oregon, 97501. Or you can go to our website, cslroguevalley.org, hit the donate button, and you'll see a place where you can give to our general fund. Or another special thing coming up that I wanted to tell you about. Well, first, let me go back to announcements. Our morning spiritual practice call is still happening 6 days a week. It's a Zoom call. The link to get there will be changing this evening, and I will be sending out an email to everyone with the new link because Zoom is requiring a password, and the new link will have the password embedded. If you need the password, it's simply morning, lowercase. If you want to be on our email list, please look for the place to join our email on Facebook, and we'd be glad to put you on our distribution list. We send out an e-newsletter every Wednesday, usually around noontime. Coming up, just to look at some of the things coming up, we have a virtual community meeting coming up. August 5th, I believe it is. I'm not sure about that. Maybe you better check our newsletter Wednesday evening. We have another service in the park in August. Many of you, when we met in the park, Bear Creek Park, this month, requested that we do it again. So we'll be meeting on August 23rd at 9:30 a.m. in Bear Creek Park. It gets a little hot by 10:30. That does cost us some money, so if you can find it in your heart to give an extra little donation to help us pay the cost of renting everything that needs to be rented to make that happen, that would be awesome. And we also have classes coming up in September. We'll have a full list soon, but we will be teaching our foundations of science and mind starting the midweek in September from 6 to 8 in the evening, Wednesday evenings for 10 weeks. That class will be taught by Reverend Michelle Ariano. There are 3 people in the room who took that from Reverend Michelle. It is an awesome, life-changing class, and I'm getting a thumbs up from those who experienced that. So I think that's all our announcements for now. Please look for our newsletter. I'm going to turn it over one more time to Alexa Ehrlich for our closing song. Alexa. We shine so bright. Thank you once again, Alexa, who was able to be like water, by the way, because we lost our accompanist at the last minute last night, and she was able to come up with tracks and just went with the flow. So thank you so much. We lost our internet, so we were not able to broadcast live, but you, if you're watching this, know that we were able to record it. So, you know, sometimes challenges happen that we can't control, but I'm reminding you as I say goodbye, Be like water, the many beautiful lessons to be humble, to treat everything and every being with equanimity, with equal love and kindness, to be flexible as we move through challenges, and to remember that we are the light. The light is eternal. The light is within me, around me, and in and through all of life. Goodbye for now. Namaste. Take care.